Ladies and gentlemen, we are live here at Deer Valley High School for their training camp. I am joined by head coach Marcus Malu. Welcome to the Press Talk Sports, the Press Talk Sports live on the road. First one ever, so this is going to be very interesting.
It is hot.
Let me tell you something.
And it's hot.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good to see you again.
Oh man, good to see you.
This has been you and I have talked about this moment leading into this moment since March. I mean, just talk about where the team is now compared to when you first kind of stepped in the doors here.
I think we have worked. These kids have worked hard. The staff have been showing up consistently, and I think we are far ahead of what we thought we were going to be at. You know, but it's still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of hype around this program. I think a lot of people have seen all the stuff on social media. But I mean, you know, there's this hype on social media and then there's pretty much putting everything out on the field. What are you looking forward to the most now, I guess? With all that said, what are you looking forward to the most going into the season? Like, what's one thing you're looking forward to? How to sustain the ups and downs. I want to see them sustain that. I think that's a big key for changing this program around is, you know, I always speak to them about the game of football is ups and downs. And we just try to make sure that we are level-headed at the time, whether we up or down. Because, you know, I think for them, when you're trying to learn how to win, you got to go through those phases of the ups and downs, right? Never too high for a moment and never too low for a moment. Just bounce right back.
You talk about, you know, you got a couple of big key returners, Santiago Walker being one of them, your quarterback Adrian Mastonite being them. Having guys who were here last year and kind of went through all that, talk about just how big they are as far as like taking into the younger guys, especially going into this season.
I think it's just helping them understand that nobody likes to lose, you know, and then now they get to speak, they get to lead. But the biggest thing is their actions, and you know, and this shows from the 30-plus kids that we have every day that shows up.
What has been the biggest challenge for you this season? And I say that because, you know, 30-something kids, obviously number-wise is a bit smaller compared to some of the other schools' rosters. But I mean, you know, you talk about this is a team that has not been in the playoffs or maybe been relevant in that regard in over a decade. I mean, what is that biggest challenge? Has just getting over the hump been the biggest challenge, that mindset, so to say?
Consistency in the classroom, like what we talked about when they first hired me was making sure that they understand that, you know, the classroom has to be taken care of in order for the field. You know, the field is going to be the easy part. They show up to the field. You got to show up to class. You know, and I think that's the biggest thing is just making sure that they understand, just staying on them every day.
What would you say the atmosphere is like around the guys right now? I mean, everything seems pretty good. You know, everyone's working hard. Everyone seems pretty eager to kind of get going. I mean, it seems like it's a positive in that regard. It is.
I think right now the guys are. I mean, you can see it and feel it. The kids want to work. You know, and they want to make us happy at the end of the day, but at the same time, you know, there's been a lot of tough love that has been given to them, right? But at the end of the day, they also understand we have our own kids. You know, we treat our own kids the same way. Right. And when we say that, yeah.
This is a program I think people see the social media stuff from you and they think, well, you know, it's kind of, okay, but it's Deer Valley in the end, right? There is that saying, you know, this, but it's still Deer Valley. How do you kind of help get them to kind of block the noise? At the same time, how do you get them over that hump this year? Because it feels like, even though it's a rebuild, so to say, the expectation feels very high.
I think when you're coaching, you're going to go through stages in your life of rebuilding a team, whether it be a youth team or a high school team, basketball, football, baseball. But, you know, when you come from Fremont, like myself and Coach Maury and even Coach Samu Falavai over at Pitt, I mean, we all coach together. And the biggest challenge that we've ever had was, I think, for me personally, was Fremont. Having 17, 18 kids show up. Right. But then turn it around, wait for the 5-weekers to be eligible, come back, and we end up, you know, running the table and winning OEL that year. You know, so this right here, I mean, you know, it's the same thing, yes, and people are saying it's still Deer Valley, but there's a lot more tools. There's a lot of talent on this campus.
Do you feel like that whole sentiment is still Deer Valley? You kind of use that as like to kind of fuel the fire, so to say, to kind of maybe that these kids are underdogs going into this in that regard. Does that make sense?
Yeah. At first I shared with them that this is what people are from the outside is looking at, that this is the same Deer Valley regardless of who's coaching, right, and what they're doing on social media. But that was it. Because I told them, I said, we just got to work. You know, if we have a goal to win, then what we have to do is our day-to-day activities have to match our goal. And so, you know, we've been helping them achieve that goal one day at a time, and it's practice. Like Iverson, we're talking about practice. Yeah, we're talking about practice. Yes, we are talking about practice.
One of the biggest goals, I think, for you guys, and I've talked about this for this year, is changing the culture of this program and what it's been like in the past and such. Where would you say you guys are in that process? Do you feel as if you're in that right direction?
We are. Sooner than what most people think. Sooner than what most people think. You know, and it's more of the community seeing that we're trying to change, you know, our side of town. And I think it's sooner than what people think. And so I think a lot of people may look at what we think of changing the culture. For us is this. You know, you can win championships, right? But getting this, I walked into 6 freshmen last year. We're at 27.
Really? I feel like the freshman class is more, with them coming, you talk about changing the culture, they are like that group that's going to change the culture.
Yeah.
I feel like with this program, when you look at Deer Valley, there'll be steps taken every year.
Yep.
You know, because you still have a lot of the players from last year who in those past regimes. But that freshman class, like, how much are you looking forward to having them when they finally come up, whether it's next year or the year after, to really kind of now we really get the ball moving, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, we got 2 freshmen playing varsity this year. You know, and so the next class coming in the following year, you know, I get it. You know, I think we're playing at a time right now where everybody right now is either playing, you know, there's a lot of good talent everywhere, Sacramento, everywhere. And so if your freshman is able to help you right away, and if they're mature enough, then yes, you know. But if not, you still got to be able to let them go through the process. But you know, a lot of these kids, when they get to us, they've been playing youth football since they were 7.
Oh, so with J7, obviously a very dynamic player for this team last year, big part of the offense. How does he kind of build? How would you say he builds upon what he did last year going to his senior season? What's like the one thing you're looking forward to him kind of building upon?
Leadership. You know, he's got the offers, right? He's got the grades, he's got the stats, and you know, he's got the swag. But I told him, I said, this year depends on how you lead. You know, you want to have a great year, then lead your guys. You know, and know how to lead your guys. Some guys needs to be rubbed in the back and tell them, you know, let's go. And some guys you need to just get on behind the doors and get on them.
Right.
You know, so it's just the leadership for him this year, just to build on. That's what I'm excited to see, because once that happens, I feel like everybody else is going to play. You know, so we want Jay to be able to pull not only just himself, but pull his teammates along with him, so that way we can make this run. And
then your quarterback, Adrian Mastonai, he was going to the season last year. He was kind of thrown to the starter spot last minute. There was a lot of talk who's going to start a quarterback. He gets the opening day nod. Just about went the whole way. Talk about his transition now from last year and getting all that experience, and then what his confidence is like going into this season.
I think his confidence has been better. Right? He's worked hard this offseason. He's taken a lot. You know, as you know, me and Maury and myself are dads that have kids that play quarterback.
Right.
We tell him, I said, that ain't the spot you want to be, because you get blamed for everything.
Right.
You know, so he's worked hard. And then knowing that, you know, he has the confidence of the staff and his teammates to be the starting quarterback, but we also have something that, you know, that can get a few things done on a few packages if we need so.
It's interesting watching him because he's not the loudest guy. When we think about quarterback being the loudest guy, he's not very vocal. He's not the biggest guy, but he does seem to command in ways. He not only does he have that quiet confidence, but he has that he commands that respect, right?
Yeah.
Has that been something you've seen grow a lot with him, more so through this offseason going to, or was there something you kind of noticed with him like on film from what you saw last year?
I think the biggest thing that Coach Morey has worked with him on is commanding the huddle. Mm-hmm. You know, your teammate has to understand that, you know, they got to have confidence in you. And that goes into, you know, just commanding the huddle. Mm-hmm. You know, because you are right. He's not the type that rah-rah-rahs. He's very quiet assassin, almost too quiet. You know, like I tell him, I say, you all right? You good? You good? So, you know, he's learning. And I think we're all looking forward to seeing what he has in store for this year, not just for the team, but for his personal goals.
How hard is it to have when you have a quarterback and when you have a starting quarterback like that, where like he is too quiet, so to say? Does that present a challenge as far as like maybe coaching him or like not, or like just trying to direct him to lead or something like that, or is kind of you just kind of let him go? Do his own thing. So
I think once we try to get him out of his comfort zone, and he's just that one that's just like still quiet. It's like you can't force it upon him because there's other things that he does, right? Just even like how he celebrates. I see him walk. I tell him all the time. I said I can always tell when you feel good. He goes, how? You flex your calves. Like he walks on the way he walks back after throwing the touchdown.
That's such a scouting report.
And he's like, Coach, you watch that? I said, yeah.
I never thought I'd see a scouting report with like the way he celebrates. He flexes his calves.
It's just I see him because he always has a different like his my
like a
son.
Different step to him, so to say?
Just you know, and it's his way of saying you know, yeah, right. He does. He's not like the other guy where it's like it's very loud and let's go. Now he has his like he is that kid. Who he is who he is.
From an on-field perspective, through the 7, you guys have been on several 7-on-7 tournaments almost weekly. It seems like. What's the one thing you noticed with him, just on-field wise, that's really kind of stood out to you over the summer so far?
How strong and accurate. I'll take that back before I get to the accurate part. How strong his arm is. You know, and then now just Coach Morey working with him on just making sure that he goes through his progression, right? Understanding that, you know, it's going to open up, whether it be early, you know, middle or late. He's just got to be able to trust it because once he trusts it, he shows glimpse on how that arm can, that flick of the wrist, you know. And
he threw a touchdown on the first play from scrimmage last year.
I remember that. I was walking right on that sideline.
Do you kind of try to run that back this year? Is that something
you keep trying to set us up for that one.
I'm just kind of wondering because, like, hey, man, if you always want to start 1-for-1 with a 70-yard touchdown, you know?
Yeah, but you know, I also watch how that game unfolded.
That's true.
Yo,
with that said, I know it's something that when I talked to him last year about it, he mentioned like, oh, that's something he said he wanted to do, right? Talk about his moxie. I think that's the one thing I've noticed with him outside arm strength and stuff. He really he has a lot of moxie to him, and I think that's something a lot of people don't. When you do the eye test, you don't really see immediately from him. Right?
Yeah.
To have a quarterback saying first play, Newfield, the team has not. To be honest, the team really has not been quote unquote good the last several years. To him be like, hey coach, I'm throwing it deep on the first play. To have a quarterback with that type of confidence, moxie, swag, whatever you want to call it. How big is that for y'all going to week 1?
It's big, but you know, I think the biggest thing for me just watching him grow is he's already had that deep ball, that confidence. He's already had that. It was building his confidence within the windows, because once he understands
like in a medium short passing game,
because that's open all day if you take care of your windows, right? If you take care of those windows now you have those DBs and backers sitting at a certain yard and you pop, you know. And I think but that confidence, you know, I've watched it since I became a head coach of just all the 7-on-7. He has his ups and downs, but the one thing I can give him credit on is, you know how we talk about, like I keep telling him, the kids, the up and downs, right? His up and downs, he has this, it's consistent. Not too high, not too low. He gets it in his ear, but he keeps it moving. You know, I watched him where, you know, me and Coach Morey both got on him. Got on him, and he turned around and came back and put one of his best drives together. You know, and it's things like that. You know, that's growth for us because that just let us know that, you know, in the middle of a tough game, he can take those criticism and you'll still be able to put it together.
we talked a lot about the skill positions. One of the biggest deficiencies the last couple of years has been the O-line, whether it's been size, numbers. Your thoughts on where the line is as the summer's kind of gone on, or as the summer's kind of been in early mid stages so far.
We're good right now. There's a lot. There's good numbers. I think we're about, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're about 11.
Okay.
13. I think there's 13 or 14 right now because there's a few kids that are not here today. But they're about 13, 14, O-line, D-line.
Talk about how big that is. I mean, in years past, that really has been one of the biggest deficiencies from this team, from this program.
Man,
not having line numbers, to have to be in camp with over 10. Like how big is that for you guys?
You ain't got an O-line. You just playing 7-on-7 with pads on. That means everybody's getting hit behind the line. So it's big for us that we have an O-line. It's big for us that we have, guys that can be able to fill in and give them breathers. And I think that's one of the biggest things we focus on this whole offseason, making sure that our first and seconds, and also, if we have our thirds, that they are getting reps, they're getting work, so that way, they fill in when they need to. Everybody has a job, and I tell them, I said, whether you get 4 or 5 reps, make those 4 or 5 reps count. Because out of those 4 or 5 reps, if you're playing D-line, you might have a tackle for a loss and a sack.
Right.
So.
How have you, this is your first year as a head coach in general, not just here, but in general, as a varsity head coach, how have you handled everything so far? Like, what's been the biggest part of the job that stood out to you that you may not have expected?
The everyday things that has to be like, in order for you to change the culture, and I'm blessed and fortunate that my schedule allows me to do what I do because they see me every day.
Right.
Every day.
Right.
They see me sometimes. I pop up in them, and when school was in, I'll pop up at lunch. Whether I get in a little earlier, if I come and see the principal for some of my reasons, I just walk the hallways and I make sure they know that I'm on campus. But I think the biggest thing was just it's not easy. There's days I go home and I'm just like, man,
what am I doing?
like, man, and there's every day, it changes, but at the end of the day, I think when you see the changes from these kids mentally of, changing the mentality of how to show up as a football player, a student athlete, it's all worth it.
What's as you get closer to opening day for you, like how you kind of like getting yourself ready as far as like as going to training camp, but once pads come on in about a month, going to opening day, like what are you personally, what are you looking forward to the most out of this? Because I feel like it's been such a build-up for you, right? Since you got hired, kind of getting to know all the kids coming in. Now, then you had spring ball. You had the college coaching, that joint spring practice, right? The college practice. What's the one thing you're kind of looking forward to as you get closer to opening day?
The support. The parents that was here last year, the parents that are coming in, our freshman parents, the future is being able to see. I want to see how that looks. I want to see how all this looks because that'll let me know, just the build-up is one thing, but just the work for us, but having to see how many people are going to come and support. Because it's not so much for me and my coaching staff, it's for them.
Right.
I think they got to be able to see because, man, August is right around the corner.
I know. Trust me, I know.
Right around the corner.
When they opened the field last year, the support that was here, especially for the opening night, right? Result aside, when you saw that, how much do you feel like that's going to be bigger compared to a year ago? Would that make sense?
I think it's going to be a lot bigger, and I think I'm looking forward to that night. It's going to be an emotional night because, just the amount of work. Just the amount of work that has been put in, that will continue to be put in, and just just for the babies. You know, they got to be able to see the light.
Right.
You know, I want them to experience that. I want them to experience that so that way they can understand that, you know, what we do behind closed doors will show up in public. And when the public show up, what you do behind closed doors.
Right. We talked about week 1. I mean, I want to ask you about the league. The league, in ways, it feels a lot more wide open than it has in recent years past, right? I mean, Pittsburgh is still the favorite to kind of take the league and continue the streak and everything. But there's so many question marks. You know, your new coach in Heritage. Liberty lost a lot of players, a lot of big-time players last year, right? Antioch seems like they're back on the come up. They had that quote-unquote not year off per se, but their rebuild, so to say.
They were building.
But they seem to be much more experienced standpoint, right? Freedom is still rebuilding. Who knows what we're going to see out of them. What's it like as a first-year head coach with this program, going to a league year per se, in the Beaver Valley, where it is a bit more wide open compared to years past?
I think it's a good thing, right? But I think for us, we try not to pay attention to that, because at the end of the day, you still got to be able to give respect to our league, right? Like I remember Pittsburgh I think you can probably remember they went like 1-for-4 in preseason, and everybody said they were rebuilding and struggling, and then they came back and ran through the league. And Heritage was good that year. You know, I think Freedom was good that year. You know, so, you know, you always got to give respect, because I feel like our league is one of the toughest, and I think that, you know, you got to be able to still pay respect to the Pittsburghs, and you know, because they're always going to have kids. When you have kids, you always going to have talent. Right. You know, so, but other than that, you still got to go through Pitt. And then, you know, for us, Deer Valley, we got to go through everybody. You know, we have to go through everybody, and that's our mindset. You know, even though it's open up to the league, we're coming from, 10 years? Roughly about 10 years. 10 years where, you know, we're coming from that. Right. You know, so it's a good thing to hear that, you know, it's wide open, but for us, it's we're coming from that.
and I say it's I say it's more open than years past, because there are. It's not just roster turnovers. I mean, you get that every year, no matter what. Yeah. But we're talking about roster turnovers with big names for that. At the same time, like coaching changes, right? Heritage was a coaching change with Fogelstrom stepping down, and now Nick Wisely taking over, right? And you know, with Antioch last year, they had their big roster change last year, but the experience now is kind of coming up. Yeah. Does it kind of get you excited in a sense where, like, okay, not to say that this year you have a chance, but to say that, you know, you can really make a huge. Do you feel like this is the year to kind of make that statement, hey, Deer Valley's back, per se? Like, of any kind of year, the way everything kind of seems to be positioning itself?
Yeah, you know, but you can position yourself Monday through Thursday. Right. But Friday night, it's got to be able to show up. Right. You know, and that's why I said, you know, you still got to deal with, you know, for us, we still have to deal with everybody, even though we've done some good things, and these kids are growing and they're getting better every day. You know, we do talk about that. We talk about that, you know, there's a chance now that, you know, it's going to be an even playing field. Even though still Pittsburgh is still Pittsburgh, Liberty's still Liberty, because you got Jackson Bell coming back. Right. Right. That's right there. Jackson Bell is,
the guy.
Yeah. Right. Now. Right. And so and you still got to go through Antioch. Right. Delhi has got those guys there. They're young too. Right. And then even with Nick, new coach at Heritage, you still got some of those guys that came back from that team last year that went to the playoffs. You know, and no disrespect to Freedom, but Freedom is still in it too. You know, they got Takai there. We know a lot of those kids are going to be seniors this year. You know, we coach a lot of those, and I train a lot of those kids, and like everybody has talent. It's just you got to put it together.
You mentioned you trained some of Freedom, because I have to ask you, Freedom Deer Valley is like, that is the rivalry between you two.
Why is there a rivalry?
I don't, you know, little thing is, you know, Liberty and Heritage were kind of taken, Pittsburgh and Antioch kind of got that locked up, I guess. Okay. You know, you guys are the last ones left. We'll call it the Remainder Bowl, you know?
The Remainder Bowl? Oh, man.
But let me ask you this, though. One thing I've been always kind of curious about is, you do, outside of this, you do a lot of personal training, especially with youth football players, right? A lot of athletes. when you're training some of the freedom guys, you kind of like maybe temper down a little bit to kind of.
Nah.
But let me ask, what's it like? You know, when you're going against kids that you train, kids that you know personally, when you play against them like that, what's that like as a coach?
It's different because there's a sign of respect.
Right.
Right. And at the end of the day, I don't hold back if we're, football is football, right? When I train all of them, the kids from Liberty, Heritage, Pittsburgh, Antioch, like everywhere. Like there's a lot of kids. It just so happened that, I train a lot of the kids and we talk our trash like, Coach, y'all gonna see us this year. I say, yep. I just hope you have I hope you have a good game. Right. But then, we start talking and it's just a blessing. It's a blessing. And, it doesn't get anywhere outside of just football. Just football talk.
How much are you enjoying kind of being here, being in this top spot like this, and getting a chance to really rebuild this program almost from the ground up?
You know what, man? There was a few times I've drove over the hill coming from freeway, right? When you come over, and just to be able to see the school, like it's probably one of the biggest school in the league. But at the same time, just the way it looks, the stadium. I mean, you have that hill, the hill that we trained on 10 years ago, and we still do, right? It's just a blessing. It's just a blessing to be in this situation where I am at right now.
With that said, also with the field, I mean, last year was the opening of the renovated field. This year you get new lights.
Yeah.
As a photographer, thank you.
Yep. And speakers.
Can we adjust to Wi-Fi 7 though? Can we get to that point now?
Well, if the district is watching this, we need to fix that. We need to fix that.
But how cool is that? I mean, the one thing I remember when my first year covering it was Matt Mills when he had the head coaching job here, and they had to play everything on the road. And their home field was Antioch, right? But it was the road show every year. And I remember last year when they opened, I remember the kids running out and how special it was to be at home. Talk about that sense of just not worrying about that, having to be the road show, so to say, right?
Yeah.
And having your home stadium at Deer Valley and being able to build your fan base and rebuild all that. How big is that for you? I mean, you saw a little bit last year, but
it's big. It's big to have your home, but it's also big to have your home, and it's one of the beautiful. Look at the site. Look at the site. Like, I know when it's time, a lot of people are gonna love just being here. Like, even just our home stands, I feel like is bigger than some. I mean, our away stands sometimes I think is bigger than most home stands.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
Like just walking into this, the parking, everything that has to do with this school, it's just, it feels right. It feels right, and I think our kids are going to enjoy it. And when you start to win games and you start to see that these seats are filled, we want to bring it back to where it's standing room only. I feel like
it started to get to that point a little bit. I think you saw a glimpse of what it could look like last year on that opening night, right?
Yep.
Where you had the whole student section, the varsity was sitting in the middle watching JV game, and then when they came out, you had signs and everything. I mean,
yep.
In your view, I know you were with the JVs then, but when you seeing these kids kind of run out, and now you get to run out with them for this year, how big is it for them to have that, to see that and have that, and for it to be tangible in that regard?
I think it's support. I think it's big because that's one thing I'm trying to work on this year. Is I've been in contact with Simba Webster, some of the alumni, just trying to get them to come and support. And I know that we're gonna have alumni show up. Because that's one thing is I want them to be able to bring that pride back of what it felt like, when Deer Valley was Deer Valley, and so I just want them to be able to support, but at the same time, it's big for these young men to see that, they got their big bros coming back,
right?
So I think it's going to be a good thing. And, who knows, when you start winning, I think you're going to have a bigger target on your back, but it's okay as long as we put in the work day to day.
Would you say that's something kind of looking forward to, like just growing that target, so to say?
Yeah, you got to want that target. As an athlete, you want to be able to have that target, but then you also have to understand when you have that target, you got to work. You got to work. What's that saying? Hard work
beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yep.
I feel like when I played, that's pretty much how I embodied like when I played back in the days of like leather helmets and everything.
Yep.
You know, that whole idea of just like work hard. 'Cause I mean, I was never the most, growing up, I was never the most athletic. I didn't do a lot of this until I moved to California. So like, seeing kids do that, where it's like, I've seen both sides of that coin, right?
Yeah.
Where I've seen a lot of talented kids who, they don't put the work in, but they're talented, so they kind of get away with it. And then the flip side of it. I had one more question to ask you. I totally forgot what it was. Well, anyway, I did. Thank you. This has been great.
Yeah, that's because you're busy watching how good they look.
I am. You know what? I have to multitask. It's interesting because this is the first like road podcast we've ever done, and then to do it during you guys' practice. So thank you first off for listening.
No, thank you for having me again.
This is cool, and thank you for letting me do the outdoor. This is new.
Hey,
we're gonna see what it takes us,
I appreciate you for the support and always, giving the love.
I always say, my time covering the league, I always talk about this, where I think you can really see the B-Val truly shine once like this program kind of gets back to what it used to be per se, right? And kind of like those glory days, because then it's like just about everyone's in it.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that. I mean, I remember telling Mills that, once the same thing. Like once this program kind of gets back to where it is, you can see really everything kind of shine. I think everyone's kind of waiting for that in ways.
Yeah.
So it'll be good. So appreciate it, guys. This has been our first episode of the Press Talk Sports live on the road here at Deer Valley Summer Camp. We are brought to you by the Brentwood Press. For as low as $20 a year, you too can get a subscription to keep up with everything happening in the East County. Go to thepress.net and click on subscribe for more information. For the new Deer Valley head coach, Marcus Malu, I am Jeff Weisinger. Thank you so much for joining us, and as always, take care of one another. We will catch you soon.